Hey, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud Ches in Yebmot, as we learn for a four Shleima for Nomi, Rivka Bas, Dina Shoshana, ben Yom Tov Lipman, ben Vorfega Chaya, Shlomo ben Rachel, Yosef Azriel ben Chaim Michal, and Elazar ben Reuma. Yesterday, we got down to Mosiv, about 8 lines down on the page. Again, we're discussing Eishes Achiv Shloya Bolomo. What's our case? Reuben dies with no children, left a wife Leah, and a brother Shimon. The first case in the Mishnah was that Shimon, before Shimon was Miyabam Leah, what happened? Another kid was born, Levi. Well, what happens when eventually he dies too? Shimon also dies. And after he had been Miyabam Leah, what happens to Levi? Levi can never marry Leah. That's clear. Why? Because he didn't share a world with Reuven. Reuven died. Levi was born later. He can never share, according to the Tanakh, he can never share. He can never be Miyab Leah. Why? And never marry Leah, because since it's Eishach of Shalom Ba'olama, he didn't share a world with him. It's like a woman who gave birth. It's like Reuven died having children, and in that case, it's an erva. Can't marry your brother's wife if she had children. Never marry her forever and ever. That's the opinion of the Tanakh that we've been discussing. Eishach of Shalom Ba'olama. But then we had a discussion about Ein Zika or Yesh Zika. If, let's say, Rav Huna said, Shemer Siyavam, this woman, this Leah, let's call her, and she died without Shimon having married her. Shimon never got a chance to marry her. He can marry her mother. How can you marry your mother? If you're married to a woman, you can't marry her. He was never married to Leah. Right? He was just waiting. So he says, you can't marry, you could marry. So he said he could marry the mother. Why? Because he holds Ein Zika. And what do we explain Ein Zika means? It means that the Zika, the bond, that Hashem said, when Reuven dies with no children, you are bonded to his wife. That's not strong enough. It's not. We said it's like tzad kedushin, but it's not really like engaged, and therefore he can marry her mother because he never really married her. That was the opinion of Huna Amar Rav. Then at the end of the page, yesterday, Rav Yehuda said, no, you can't marry the mother. Why? Because he holds yeshik. It's as if you were married to Leah. You can't marry Leah's mother now, even if Leah died. You never really married Leah, but there was a Zika there, and they haven't been married. So this is what the discussion that we're having now. Masiv, Rav Huna, 8 lines down on Yud Chesam Rav Masiv, Rav Huna Barchia, Asaba Maimer, Umeis, Shnicha, let's learn some evidence. What was the case in our Mishnah? Again, Reuben died, left with brother Shimon. Shimon didn't marry, was not the Yabam Leah, didn't marry her, but he did Maimer, Kedush Rabbanan. So the Mishnah said over there, well, in that case, what's the deal? You know what? Div chalitza, the tzara, mishum tzarasa, right? Mishum tzarasa, and asa b'maimer umeis shniya chaletz l'sevemes. Let's say Shimon did maimer to the Yavama. Then what about his co-wife? The whole idea is right. What's the idea of tzara? Again, in a regular case, Reuven dies, left a brother Shimon. And then before he married Leah, Levi was born, so Levi can never marry Reuben. Reuben's wife Leah, right? Never marries her. What happens though if Shimon then performed Yibum, and Shimon had another wife? Again, we'll call her Sarah the Tzara, just rhymes, call his wife the Sarah. What about her? So Levi can't marry her either because Sarah is the Tzara's erva, is the Tzara of Leah. So you don't marry. That's what we said in the first Mishnah. However, what happens if Shimon's just performed? He never really performed Yibum on Leah. He just did Maimer Kedush Rabbanan on Leah, so they were never really married. So what do you say there? So you say, the Mishnah's choletz is said you chalitza on the tzara. You never marry Leah because Leah is a shachshol v'lomov to Levi, but on Sarah the tzara you perform chalitza. That's the case that we're looking at now. The Gemara is not asking a kasha from that point of Mishnah. Let's say Shimon did Maimer on Leah, and then he died. Shnia, the second one, meaning his wife, his co-wife, Shimon's wife, Shimon's real wife, Sarah the Tzara, Choletz is from Zebemes. Why? Time it up Maimer because he did Maimer. So therefore, there's a connection there. Hello, Ava Maimer. In other words, if he didn't make Maimer on Leah, so Shnia Nami Yavu Miyamid, she can make even. Why? Because it's mashma that Ein Zika Yemet Yesh Zika. If there's a Zika, if there's a bond, so as soon as Reuven dies, Leah is bonded to Shimon, and therefore, if he's bonded, Leah's bonded him, she has the co-wife Sarah. The Sarah is her co-wife because they're already bonded. You say if he did Maimer, so then there's like this sort of bonded. See, it's clear if Shimon performs, according to the Tanna Kama, if Shimon performs Yibam on Leah and he has another wife, Sarah, so she's clearly the co-wife. And if she's the co-wife of Eshach Shalom of Leah, so Levi can never marry either one of them. It's Pater Yibam and Chalitza. There's no Yibam and Chalitza. But if he did Maimer, so on Leah, so his co-wife isn't really the co-wife, sort of the co-wife. So do Chalitza on Sarah the Tsar, not Yibam. You can't do Yibam, but you can do Chalitza. Fine, you do Chalitza. The rabbi said do Chalitza because Maimer is only Kushra on it anyway. So do Chalitza on the Tsara. But it's mashma only because he did Maimer. Let's say he didn't do Maimer. He did nothing. Shimon died without having married the Yavam at all. Right? Time it of Maimer, halal of Maimer. If he didn't do Maimer, if he didn't do anything, in other words, Reuben died with no children and left Leah to Shimon. Then Shimon died. In between, Levi was born. Let's say, fine, but Shimon died. Right? Halal Maimer. Then Shni Yavam. Then can Levi marry? Can Levi marry Sarah the Tzara when Shimon dies? Also with no children, assuming they have children. Of course he can. Why not? It's mashma shni because she wasn't Eishach Shalom Malamo when Levi was alive at the time Shimon was alive. And pardon? So he can even marry, he can be for a Yibam. If Shimon dies now, he can make Yibam. What shouldn't he be able to make? That's what it's mashma. Hello, my machine. I mean, remember why? If Zika alone, the bond makes it like you're partially married. And that's what Yeshika was. Zika even if he was married to her, at least like an arusa. So even if Shimon didn't marry her, but Shimon had a bond with Leah. So in that bond, if Yesh Zika is like he's married to her, so then Sarah was the co-wife of Leah, was the co-wife of Shimon, meaning that, right, Sarah was married to Shimon. Sarah was married to Shimon. Reuven was married to Leah. Shimon was married to Sarah. When Reuven dies, if Leah is considered like married to Shimon, like Yesh Zika, so then Sarah is the co-wife of Leah anyway. How could Levi perform Yibam on Sarah when Shimon dies? She was the co-wife of Leah. That's the question. If you say Yesh Zika, and that's a problem according to Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said Yesh Zika, that even if you didn't perform Yibam, right? You didn't perform Yibam, but Yesh Zika, it's as if you're married to her, as he said before, that if Reuben dies, no children, if brother Shimon, if Shimon's married to Leah, and if Leah ups and dies right now, he never married her, just Yesh Zika, Shimon cannot marry her mother. Because it's like he was married to her. So if it was like he was married to her, then also Levi shouldn't be able to perform Yibam to her if Shimon dies now instead of Leah dying, right? Pardon?
What's the status of Leah? Shimon doesn't do Yibam.
Okay. So she has to wait. That's what she goes. She's called Shemer Yibam. She's waiting for Yibam, and Shimon's supposed to perform Yibam or Chalitza. Now, if he ups and dies now on her, and who's left? Levi. Well, Levi can't marry her because because she was Reuben's wife. So then she's free to marry anybody she wants. She's free. There's nobody else. It's like if Reuben dies with no children and there's no brothers. What is she supposed to do? There's no brothers. There's only mitzvah if there's a brother who's eligible to marry her. So that's the kasha. If you say Yesika, so it's mashma over here that only because Shimon did Maimer, then you do Chalitz. But if Shimon didn't do Maimer, then you could even make Yibam. Levi could even make Yibam on Shimon's wife. But why? If you say there's Zika, so Leah was, so to speak, married to Shimon, just like Shimon's real wife, Sarah. So how can you say you can marry Sarah? So the answer is Umar said, Amar Rabba, no, you're reading it wrong. Who did not forget the law of the Maimer? Don't be medayik. Oh, if he did Maimer, you do Chalitza. But if he didn't do Maimer on Leah, if Shimon didn't do Maimer on Leah, then Levi could even marry Sarah? No. Even if he didn't make Maimer, also Shnia Mechlitz Cholsa, Shnia meaning the second wife, Sarah, Shimon's wife, Shimon's real wife, his only wife, does do Chalitza Yibum and Lo Yabma because of Zika. Hadikani Maimer, the reason it says Maimer is Lapukim Beishamai, to exclude from Beishamai. You know, we explain Maimer is only Drabanan. If you hold of Zika, we're talking about there's a bond there in a Torah, because Torah says if Reuven dies with no children, Shimon just can't leave her. She's bonded to Shimon in some way. How strong that bond is the topic of our discussion. Is it a strong bond, like they're engaged or not? But the reason he said over here was some Maimer is certainly only Tush Rabbanan. But Beishamai holds if you did Tush Rabbanan, that excludes from Yibam Chalitza. The Radikani Maimer Lapuki Beishamai to exclude from Beishamai. Domer Maimer Koni Kinyan Gomer. Beishamai holds that if you did Maimer, there's a full Kinyan. If Shimon did Maimer, he didn't marry, he didn't perform Yibam. He didn't consummate the marriage. He just did Maimer, gave her a ring and said, "Arei Mukadeshesli." It's like he's married to her, and therefore you wouldn't even. And now if Shimon dies, Levi wouldn't even do Yibam or Chalitza. Wouldn't even need Yibam or Chalitza. Why? Because it was like because Sarah, Leah for sure came from Reuven, and Sarah was the co-wife of Leah, because Leah was like she was married. He did Maimer, and therefore Sarah and Leah were co-wives, and therefore there's no Yibam or Chalitza on Sarah either. That's the pshat in the mission. So again, Rav Yehuda said Yesik, and we asked the Kashan Kamash Malan that we don't say like Beishamai, that you still need Chalitza. But the truth is that even if you didn't do the Maimer, because he holds Yesh Zika, because Rav Yehuda holds Yesh Zika, there is a Zika. If Reuven dies, it's as if Leah is married to Shimon, and therefore he didn't marry her. Shimon just died now. Levi cannot marry even Sarah, who was Shimon's real wife. Why? Because Sarah's Eishes Afshalava Bezika. There was a Zika there, even though she wasn't really married, but there was a Zika there, and that's like marriage. Eisvei Abai, another kasha on Rabbi Yehuda. Shnei Achim Ba'olam Echad. Listen to this case: two brothers in one world, Reuven and Shimon. Right? Umei Sechem Man Below Vlad. Reuven died with no children, like we always said. Ba'omer Hasheni has a last Maimer. Shimon was about to do Maimer. The Yevimto, below his Piklas Maimer, he didn't get a chance to Maimer. Ad Shanolo Ach, until Levi was born. Right? Levi was born before Shimon did it. Umeis, and now Shimon dies. Harishoni Yotza Mishmesach Sholomo. Right? This is like right. This is like we're talking about this case. This is our case. We're talking about Sholomo. So the first wife, Harishona Leah Yotza Mishmesach Sholomo. Ushnia, the second one, Ocho Letzis Omis Yabenes. Right? The second one could do Yibam or Chalitza. Now it's mashma ein zika. How could Levi do Yibam or Chalitza? So we're saying over here, right, that Levi shared a world, right? Levi shared a world with Shimon, and it says v'amad hasheni lasas v'aymer b'vimtov lo hispek las b'maymer ad shenolad lo ach, till the brother was born. Umeis, in other words, Shimon never consummated it. Umeis. So the first one goes Eshav Shlomo. The shnia, the second one ochalet sam shebemes, meaning Shimon's wife Sarah could even do Yibam. If you say Yeshika, the same question. If you say Yeshika, so that means that Leah was like she was married to Shimon, even though Shimon didn't even perform Maimer. He didn't do anything. Shimon could have married her, but didn't. So right away you say, not only is Leah can never marry Eshav Shalomo, but even Sarah could also not marry. Right? I'm sorry, not even Sarah. If you say Yeshika, then even Sarah shouldn't be able to be married to Levi. And yet we say, Levi can even do Yibum on her. Listen to that. The answer, so it's a kasha smashma over here. Ein Zika. Gemara says, no, you're right. That is clearly Ein Zika, right? Because again, Reuven died with no children, left Leah to Shimon. Shimon didn't do anything, but he had a wife, Sarah, right? And now he dies. So Levi can even do Yibum on Sarah. He can never do Yibum on Leah because they shall Shalomo, right? Reuven died. He wasn't in the same world. But when Levi was born in the same time that Shimon was alive. And Shimon died, so Levi can even perform Yibam on her. Why? Yesika, Sarah is also the co-wife of Leah, because Leah was like she was married to him. The Gemara says, Hamani Rav Meir, it goes like Rav Meir. This case goes like Rav Meir Damar Ein Zika. That Mishnah we're just quoting, we're going to see that in Mirz Hashem. We're going to talk about this case also tomorrow. That goes like Rav Meir, who holds Ein Zika at all. He also there's no Zika. Yeah.
But you could say two things. One, you could say that the Zika is only between Shimon and
the
Leah.
Zika is between all.
But it's not strong enough to make a kesher between Leah and Sarah, the Sarah.
No, it doesn't work that way. The marriage is there's no kesher there. The kesher goes based on the marriage. If she's married to Shimon, she's a co-wife. I think you can't have it both ways.
The zika isn't that strong because there's
No. There's no such case.
There were three brothers.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We'll come to that. But there's no such thing. If she's married to Shimon, if she's considered married to Shimon, she's the co-wife of Leah. You can't have it both ways. You can't be a co-wife. You can't not be the co-wife and still be married to somebody. You know what I mean? If a guy has two wives, they're co-wife. They're both co-wives. You can't say, well, she's married to him, but she's not the co-wife. It doesn't work that way.
If there was another brother, Yehuda.
Okay, we're going to talk about the other case. We'll get to that case. Don't confuse it now, because we're going to get to that case. We're going to talk about the case when there's another brother. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, that's Ein Zika. So what are we saying? Rav Yehuda holds Yei Zika. And when Reuben dies, it's considered as if Leah is married to Shimon. All right, and therefore, if Levi is born subsequently and Shimon dies, he can never do Yibam on Sarah either. Okay, he can't do that. Hamani Rameir Damer Ein Zika. Right, something blue. No, don't worry about it. Right, Hamani Rameir Damer Ein Zika. We still have the internet. That's good. Right, Hamani Rameir Damer Ein Zika. Remember, me Svirle Rameir Ein Zika. This may really hold Ein Zika. By the time we learn Arba Achim, here's a case with four brothers. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Arba Achim, Shnayim Mem Nesun Shtechayos. Reuven and Shimon now are not married to Leah and Sarah. Sarah and Leah are not related. Married to two sisters, Leah and Rachel, right? Arba Achim, Shnayim Mem Nesun Shtechayos. Umeisur Sunachos. Reuven and Shimon died and left two sisters, right? Harei L'chotzav Lamis Yabmos. Now, what would you say in that case? Each one came from a different household. Reuven, there's Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. Wouldn't you say that Levi should marry one of them and Yehuda should marry the other one, right? They're not coming from the same household. If a man has 10 wives and he dies with no children, you only perform even on one wife, and only one brother performs on, you don't do the other wife. But here they came from two different families, right? From Reuben and Shimon. But what do you say? You chalitza, not even. Why? Isaac of Rameir Ein Zika. If you say Ein Zika, Hani Mitrei Batikas, they came from two different houses, right? Leah came from Reuben. She was from Reuben's house. She was Reuben's wife. Rachel came from Shimon's house, Shimon's wife, and that highly abmachadav, let Levi and Yehuda each marry one of them. What's the problem? The answer is you don't do that. Why? Because you say that they're achos skukaso. In other words, if Levi looks at one of these two women, right, Leah and Rachel, who can he marry? Leah? Yeah, but she is the sister of Rachel, who's zakuk to him, right? It's not achos ishto, but it's achos skukaso if you hold, right? And same thing with Yehuda. Yehuda can't marry Rachel, let's say, because she is the sister of Leah, who's a chotz kukaso. So it's mashma there's Zika. If you say Rav Meir holds Ein Zika, let them get married. Says no, Lolam Ein Zika. Really, there is no Zika, and it's not chotz kukaso. You should discover also about the mitzvah. It's a different reason. Even if you say Ein Zika and they're not really connected, it's not strong enough. There's a connection, obviously, because God said you have to perform even more chalitza, but it's not strong enough to be a rusa. But the reason over there that they shouldn't get married, Levi to one and Yehuda to the other one, is because also levatel mitzvah yibam, like we saw yesterday. You're not supposed to be mevatel the yibam, meaning, how are you being mevatel yibam? Because we're afraid to do. Listen to this. Adam b'yamachad. Let's say Levi marries Leah first, right? Mayas idach. Then what will happen? While one's being miyabam, the other one's upset, and Yehuda might die, become mevatlas mitzvah yavamin. And then, and what about Leah? And what about Rachel? Rachel has nobody to marry, and you won't do even. There's a mitzvah yibam or a chalitza. If Levi marries one of them before Yehuda marries the other one, maybe he'll die, and you won't have a mitzvah of yibam, and you'll be mevatel mitzvah of yibam. So the Gemara says, who cares? He ain't Zika to batal. So if there's no Zika, if they're not, what? She would go free, and you didn't perform the mitzvah of Yibam. There's a mitzvah to perform Yibam. Now you guys say, why is that important? You know, so there was no Yibam. He died, there was no Yibam, right? What happens right? Yes, but here you're doing it on purpose. This way, if you say they do the chalitza, so if Levi marry, let's say instead of Yibam on Leah, he does chalitza, and then his brother dies, he could still do chalitza on the other one, because on Rachel, because she came from a different brother, right? But if he does Yibam on one, and then Yehuda dies, now he can't do Yibam or chalitza on Rachel. Why? Because it's achot ishto. There's no Yibam or chalitza there. So effectively you voided the mitzvah of Yibam. Says maybe Well, so Gemara says, ain't Zika. If you hold ain't Zika, like Rav Meir says that, so Tavatal, who cares? So there's no, so he died. So you don't do it. So Rav Gamliel, we're going to see later on Gamliel, the special paragraph of Gamliel Amar ain't Zika. That's not. Where does Gamliel says that? Gamliel Amar. This is the case. Reuben and Shimon, different case. Reuben and Shimon. Reuben's married to an older sister. She's 20. Shimon's married to an 8-year-old younger sister who can make mian. She wasn't married by her father. Her father was dead, let's say, and she married. Now, so what do you do? And now Reuben dies. What should Shimon do? 2 brothers married to 2 sisters, but Shimon does not really marry to the 8-year-old because it's only Kedusha Rabbanan. And now he has a Zika to marry Leah. So the Rabbanan say over there, you know what? We teach the little girl to make mian. So because there's a Zika for the older one to marry, mitzvah to do to the older one. That's the Rabbanan. Rav Meir says, no, we don't care. If the one makes mian. If not, she doesn't make mian and she grows up to be 12 years old and she stays in the marriage, then it's a marriage d'oraisa. And then Leah is out. In other words, you didn't do any yibam. Even though there was a mitzvah of yibam as soon as Reuben died, you let it go. So what do you see when Leah holds? If the younger one decides to walk away, yeah, imlo miyana, Tantan should wait till she's 12 years old, but and then Leah leaves because she's a chosisha. So there you're mavatal it. You don't say, no. Tell the young girl to do mian right now, the young sister, because mian nullifies it. What's the word in English? Annuls the wedding, annuls the first marriage, and nullifies, annuls the marriage to the little girl, and he can marry her sister. Just like you can, a person could, if he doesn't marry women, a man could sleep, in theory, with 10 sisters if he's not married to any of them. He's not doing it for Shem Kedushin. So over here also, even though he slept with the younger one, but he wasn't married to her. So we see over here, he says, Amalei, during the Leil at Rav Meir comes, yes, Kash Rav Meir. What do we say? We said Rav Meir holds Ein Zika, but he still holds also Levat the Mitzvah Yamin, because why do you say Chalitza over there? Why do you say you could do Yibam on both? Why don't you say you do Yibam, let Levi marry Leah and let Yehuda marry Rachel? Because we're afraid while Levi's marrying Leah, maybe Yehuda will die, and then Rachel will be nothing, and you're Mavat Mitzvah Yamin. So who cares? So the Gemara, Rav Meir holds of Ein Zika, and he doesn't care about. So let it go. He says, if the younger girl wants to make mian, fine. If not, wait till she goes older, and then Leah will there won't be any Yibam or Chalitza on Leah because she'll be a Chosishto. So you see, Rav Meir's not worried about it. So yes, the Gemara says, Amalei. So you answer him during Rav Meir promise. You're asking a kasha from Rabbi Gamliel on Rav Meir. They don't have to hold like one another, right? We start up by asking Rafuna Barchi is asking all these kashas, then he asked another kasha, or Esvei Abaya asked this kasha, and he says he's asking that's Rav Meir. That's Rav Meir, but Meir holds Ein Zika. But if he holds Ein Zika, why doesn't he say that Levi and Yehuda could each marry one of the two sisters? Why doesn't he say, each could marry one of the 2 sisters? Oh, because also about the mitzvah, because maybe Yehuda will die before he gets a chance to do anything in about that. Gamliel doesn't care about that. He says, what do you ask in Kashmir Gamliel to Rav Meir? He says, no, Hachi come in. This is what I mean to say. Is it likely that Rav Meir's chayesh afilas fake? Rav Meir's concerned that maybe why do you do chalitza on both sisters? You don't do Yibam on one, Levi on one, and Yehuda on the other one, because you're afraid maybe Yehuda will die. So Rav Meir's chayesh, even for a suffix, maybe the guy will die. And Gamliel, I feel levadi chayesh. Gamliel is not even more levadi. Meaning over here we tell the 8-year-old and the 20-year-old, those cases where he's married to 2 sisters, he says, don't do anything. If the girl wants to make me and mine, not. If not, let her grow up to be 12 and then push away the other one. And you're not worried about the mitzvah being about mitzvah, even where it's a vadai. It's not a suffix. The suffix is maybe Yehuda's going to die. Who says Yehuda's going to die now? What's the likelihood he's going to die? But over here, the little girl is going to become 12 soon, right? And then you're going to push away the older one, even Levadachash. He says, yes, maybe that's the case. The one who's not worried about maybe somebody's going to die, or you're not worried about bittul mitzvah yavamin. I feel levadai. Gamliel is not worried about bittul mitzvah yavamin, so you're mavatal it. So it's not a big deal. So there's no mitzvah even. There's no mitzvah even. Even in a vadai case, where she's vadai going to be in that case when the little girl gets to be 12 years old and doesn't walk away. I feel levadai uman dechayish, and the one who's worried about being mavatal mitzvah yavamin like Rav Meir, I feel is fake. She's even worried about that. So therefore, that's how you answer it. So at the end of the day, we still have 2 shitas over here, right? We have yesh sika and ein sika. Rav Yehuda holds yesh sika, and if Reuben dies, and he's married to Leah, and Shimon didn't do anything. But Leah dies. Shimon cannot marry Leah's mother because it's like he was married to Leah. That's Rav Yehuda's opinion. Rav Huna Amarav said no, he could marry because Ein Zika. What does it mean, Ein Zika? Ein Zika means it's not strong enough to be like an Arusa. And Rav Yehuda holds of, yes, Zika, it is. Now, when Rav Yehuda says that, it's not the Amora, it's not the Tana Rebbe Yehuda, it's Rav Yehuda. At the bottom of yesterday's daf, what was it? Omar Rav Yehuda, what do we have here? Omar, the Rav Yehuda Omar, 6 lines from the bottom of the page of yesterday's Amid days. It says Rav Yehuda Omar. Rav Yehuda disagrees with Rav Huna Omar Rav. So now the Gemara says, on our place on the bottom of Yud Chesam and Aleph, Amalei Abayel Rav Yosef, Had Rav Yehuda, this is Rav Yehuda said that Yesh Zika, the Shmuel he. Rav Yehuda learned, remember we had Rav Yehuda, the other day we said Rav Yehuda said the name of Ravasi, right? Rav Yehuda Ravasi said the name of Ravasi. He learned in Ravasi, he was a Talmud of Ravasi, he was a Talmud of Rav. And later on, when they were dead, he was a Talmud of Shmuel. So he says, when Rav Yehuda said that, he said that really from Shmuel, from his Rebbe Shmuel. Other Rav Yehuda Shmuel, it's Rav Shmuel who holds of Zika. Ditznan, Amid Beis now, Shemeres Yavam. That Lashon, Shemeres Yavam, you ask, what is her status before? Take a look at the top Rashi page. Shemeres Yavam, Mamtenis LaYibam Yibma. She's waiting. Where she's a lady in waiting, right? Her husband died. She's Shomeres Mamtenis, Shomeres Yavam. She's on guard. She's waiting for a Yibam of the Yavam, of the brother Shimon. Now we had this case also we mentioned before. What happened over here? Reuven died, left a wife Leah, and Shimon was going to perform Yibam on Leah, right? But there was also another brother Levi, and Levi, they're all alive. Levi got engaged. It was Ma'aras Rachel, Leah's sister. Now, could he do that or not? Could he marry her? Well, it's a chotz kukaso, right? So he said over there, they said to him, Omlo, we tell Levi, Hamten, wait, so wait till your brother marries Leah. Then when your brother marries Leah, you can't marry her. Not only can you not marry Leah, but there's no Zika anymore. Leah is the Yavama. She's the one whose husband died, right? She can marry Shimon or Levi. The Levi went ahead and married her sister Leah, or got engaged to her. So Rabbi Yehuda says, you know what? We tell him over there, we tell Levi, wait, don't marry Leah, don't marry Rachel yet, because she is the sister of your Yavama. She's achotz kukaso, because Leah can marry Shimon or Levi. So Levi also has a bond with her. So therefore he shouldn't marry her sister achotz kukaso. The rabbis disagree over there. If you hold Ein Zika, what's the problem? There's no Zika over here. Let Shimon marry her, and that's it. We don't care. It's achotz kukaso. It's not a problem. So you see, Shmuel holds of Yesh Zika, because we tell Levi, the brother, don't marry her yet. She's achotz kukaso. She's the sister of the one who you have a Zika with. So he said to him, so what happened over here? Abaye said to Rav Yosef, you know what? Rav Yehuda said Yesh Zika, he was going like Shmuel, his Rebbe, his later Rebbe. So he said, so he answered him. Rav Yosef said, so why? Maybe he's going like Rav. So what? Maybe he got this from Rav, his Rebbe. He says, Kasha, if that's the case, then it's Kasha to Rav and a Rav. Because the first case when we said Ein Zika yesterday was Rav Huna Amar Rav. If Rav Yehuda got it from Rav, we got to steer her with Rav himself. Because before Rav Huna Rav said Ein Zika, that if the Yavama died, Leah died before Shimon married her, Shimon can marry her mother, according to Rav Huna Amar Rav. So there Rav says Ein Zika. And if Rav Yehuda got it from Rav also, Yesh Zika, we got to steer in Rav. One says Rav said Yesh Zika, one said Ein Zika. So Yakash Rav. So the Gemara says, well, why is that a problem? Dilma Maroy and Yinav Rav. It's machlokas what Rav said, right? We have many times machlokas what he said. Rav Huna said that Rav said Ein Zika. Rav Yehuda said he said Yesh Zika. Well, Kivan did Shmei Dav Shmuel Behedya. We know that Shmuel said Beferish Yesh Zika because he said he passed like Yehuda Seir said. We tell Levi to wait, don't consummate the marriage, don't get married to her until your brother performs even because Leah is because you're the wife you want to take Rachel is achotz kukaso. So since we say Shmuel says clearly that Yesh Zika, Mishmei Rav, it would have to be a Bachlokas Amarom. What did Rav say? Mishmei Rav Kamaroi. Rav Huna says no and no Ein Zika, and Rav Yehuda says Yesh Zika. Lo Shakin Mishmei Shmuel. I'd rather not say that he didn't say the name of Shmuel Behedya, who said it before Shemekmil Kamar. In other words, I have a choice. Did Rabbi Yehuda say it like Rav, in which case it's a machlokas what Rav said, yay zika or ain't zika? Or did he go like Shmuel, who just said yay zika? So I'd rather say, we know favorite Shmuel said yay zika, we'll go like that. With Rav, we're not sure. Rav Huda said Rav ain't zika. Now you want to say maybe Rav Yehuda said yay zika, and it's a machlokas what Rav said. Why put it in a machlokas? Just say that Rav Yehuda said, when he said yay zika, he was going like Shmuel, who said favorite, right? Amarav Kana. I said this in front of Rav Zvid. Amr says, you learned that Rav Yehuda said this, he said it plain, right? We started on the base, 6 lines from Dapim yesterday on the base. Rav Yehuda said, yay zika, right? That if Yevamot dies without having performed a marriage to Shimon, Shimon cannot marry your mother because yay zika. And he just said it plain, not Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Anan behedya masninu, I learned the favorites that it was Amr Rav Yehuda Shmuel. I learned the favorites that he said in the name of Shmuel, behedya masninu Amar, that Amar Rav Masnina Lo Amar Rav Yidam Shmuel, that I said it in the name of Shmuel, Shemeres Yom Shemesa, Asr Be'ima. Al Mitzvah Yesika. Okay, so everybody else said Yesika, and Rav Yehuda went like Shmuel. Baz Shmuel Tamei, Shmuel goes according to his own svar. Dam Shmuel, Loch Rav Yehuda B'Meseira, that does Yesika. Why did Shmuel have to say that Loch is like Rav Yehuda B'Meseira, that we tell Levi, don't marry her, don't marry Rachel, your Vama's sister, until Shimon performs Yibam on Leah? Right? Why he had to say that, and he also had to say the first case of Rav Yehuda Shmuel. He said Rav Shmuel that you can't marry Leah's mother. If Leah dies, you can't marry her mother because it's the mother of your zakuk. Why did he have to say both? Just say yesika. In other words, why did we have to have both cases? Both cases he's telling b'tzricha. Why don't he both cases? In other words, in both cases, Shmuel said that basically it's yesika because he said, like Rav Yehuda B'Seira, that we tell Levi don't marry Rachel until your brother makes Yibam on Leah, and then it won't be as Kusas anymore because he's married to her. And he also has to tell us that the case that you don't marry Leah's mother if Leah died. Both cases, the idea is Yesik. It's Richat. Yes, meaning Yesik. If just say Yesik, maybe Yesik is only when there's one brother Shimon. Reuben dies left one brother Shimon. Yesika. Avol betray lo, but maybe with his 2 brothers, you don't say Yesika because which one is she zakuk to? She can marry any of them. When there's one brother, it's Yesika, but maybe 2 not. Kamash Malon, the Allah say even when there was 2 brothers. In case of Yehuda say there were 2 brothers, Shimon and Levi. And Levi got engaged to Rachel. There were 2 brothers. We tell Levi, don't marry Rachel until Shimon marries Leah. So that's 2 brothers. Even when there's 2 brothers. While they're alive. But if Leah died, let's say, maybe Pakala Zika. Maybe the Zika is gone, and you could marry the mother, her mother. Kamashma, in both cases, the Zika b'chtila paka. Zika doesn't go away without Yibam or Chalitza, right? There's still a Zika there. And therefore, when he says Yesh Zika, that means that it's like Shimon was married to Leah, even though he wasn't. And if Leah died, he can't marry her mother. So that the Yesh Zika in all cases, like we've said before. Now, back to our regular case of Achav Shalom Balamo. We said Shnei Achim Umeis, 2 brothers, Reuben and Shimon, Umeis Achim, Reuben died with no children. And now this case, before Levi was born, Shimon already married Leah, right? We said before Levi was born afterwards. So Levi, right? We said before Levi can never marry Leah. But here, even a case where Shimon was married to Leah, when Levi was born, Shimon was already married to Leah. He had performed Yibach and then Levi was born, Umeis, and now Shimon dies. Well, the first one, Leah goes out because Levi did not share a world with Ruvain and sexual lamo. And Shimon's wife Sarah also Sarasa. Asa b'mayim. Let's say this is really like the first mission in the parak, except over here we're saying this is the case of what of Yibam b'achkach nolad. In the first case of the Mishnah, it was nolad yachkach Yibam. So over here, Asaba Maimer Umeis. Let's say he did Maimer, he only did half a marriage, like he did a Kedusha drop on Umeis. Hashniya Choletzes V'Lo Misavema. So there we say also that if he did Maimer, the second one gets Chalitza because he didn't really marry. He wasn't really. We'll see. We'll talk about this. Rav Shimon disagrees, going on the first case. Shimon Omer Miyav Leizam and Shiur or Chalitza and Shiur. So Rav Shimon, that's not a case of Eshav Shalomo. We don't care. In other words, Rav Shimon says. You can be why? Because when Levi was born, Shimon had already performed Yibam. So they don't look at Levi compared to Reuven. When Levi was born, his brother Shimon was married to Leah. So if Shimon dies now, he did share a world with Shimon, and he could marry Yibam. He could even perform Yibam. Shimon Miyam Leizim Shirza. He can marry either Sarah or Leah, because they were both married to Levi. They were both married to Shimon when Levi was born. Oh, Cholot says there are two wives falling from Shimon, right? At this point, Shimon is married to Leah and to Sarah, and then Levi was born, and he shared a world with Shimon. And Shimon died now. He can marry whichever one he wants, according to Rav Shimon. Yeah. No, only one Yibam. No. Oh, yes. This Leah could be even right. Leah's first husband, Ruby, died with no children. She formed Yibam on Shimon. Now Shimon died, and when Shimon died, Levi was also there. If you want Yibam again, you could be Yibam 100 times. If there's 100 brothers and they all died with no children, whatever, it's in theory can happen. Amar Rav Oshia. So clearly we see over here Rav Shimon argues, and he says that Yibam u'v'sof no. Like if Levi was born, there was two ways. Levi could either be born before Shimon performed Yibam, or he could be born after Shimon performed Yibam. But you see, if he was born after Shimon performed Yibam, so when he was born already, she was not the Eishtach Shalom. You don't look at Reuben, like Reuben's sort of canceled out. When Levi was born, Shimon was already married to Leah. So Rav Oshia says, listen to this, I'm Rav Oshia, Rav Shimon even argued in the first case. Even Rav Shimon says, even if it was no little Sof Yibam, listen to the care, you say, even if Levi was born after Reuben died and left, Leah, the wife Leah, and then Shimon performed Yibam, right? So when Levi was born, she wasn't married yet. She was married. Rav Shimon says over there also, after Shimon dies, he can perform. Levi can perform Yibam on Leah, even in that case, even though it's Eishav Shalom compared to. So Rav Oshia, this is a big chiddush. That's what we're going to discuss now the next day, tomorrow, also about what does that mean. That's gone pretty far. He's saying that. So what is the case of Eishav Shalom? We'll see. Amar Rav Oshia, Chalak Rav Shimon Akvishon. He argued in the first case also, even where it was what? No letter b'sof Yavam. Levi was born and then Shimon performed Yibam. Still, he would argue and say when Shimon dies, Levi could do Yibam on Leah. Amar Rav Oshia, Chalak Rav Shimon Akvishon. I mean, how do you know? Midiktani Mishnah said, what do we need the first Mishnah for? According to Rabbanan, Rav Shimon is not mentioned in the first Mishnah. But what do we need it for at all? If you say, what do we need that whole Mishnah for? Baba the Resh, what do you need for? Laman Tanila, who do you live for? Rabbanan, Hashta, in this case, listen in this case, in the case in our Mishnah here, Yavmos Safnola, where Shimon performed Yibam and then Levi was born, right? Even in that case, the Chiashka Be'terashka, when Levi was born, it was fine, Be'hetera, meaning it wasn't Eishach Sholomo, because when he was born, Shimon was married to her, it was Eishach Bolomo, Asar Rabbanan, still the Rabbanan say it's Eishav Shalom compared to Reuven, and therefore Levi can never marry Leah, even in that case. So no B'yachach Yavam, if he was born first and then was Miyavam, certainly would be Eishav Shalom in that case, the first case, to El Lav of Shimon. El is teaching me, even according to Rav Shimon, the first mission is even according to Rav Shimon. It's Rav Shimon, it's to tell me that even in a case of Nola, B'yachach Yavam, still Rav Shimon says that Levi can perform Yibam on Leah after Shimon dies. The first case tells me the koch of Rav Shimon, that even in a case of what? Of no little self Yavam, Rav Shimon says the Levi can perform Yibam. It's not Eish Shalom Lamo. And the safest tells me the chiddush of the Rabbanan, that even if it was Yavam, Ulubasov Nolad, Shimon performed Yibam, and then Levi was born, even in that case, the Rabbanan say that Leah is Eish Shalom Lamo for Levi, and Levi can never marry you. We should even mention Rav Shimon arguing in the Reisha. We have over here Rav Shimon Omer. Didn't mention Rav Shimon in the Reisha. He waited till the rabbis gave both cases. And then he argued. So how could you have a shalom? He's not going to argue on the whole concept. Plus it says right? You only perform Yibam if you shared a world with that deceased brother. So where does Rav Shimon say there's a case of Eshav Shalomo? He says if Shimon married her, Shimon married Leah, whether Shimon married her before Levi was born or after he was born, either way, Levi can perform Yibam on the same Leah after Shimon dies. So what is the case of Avshalom? Bechad was one brother Shimon, Umes, and he died. V'nolad lo ach, right? There was one brother Umes, there was one brother Reuben, he died, right? Left Leah, and then a brother was born. Period. Right? There was no other brothers, right? Very simple. Reuben died with no children. And then Reuben's mother gave birth to another child, to that father. That's Eishav Shalom. Inami, or betrayed. There were two brothers, there was a brother Shimon, but he didn't make Yibam. He didn't perform Yibam. Velo Mason, he didn't die, right? He didn't perform Yibam and he didn't die. So in that case, there was no, because according to Shimon, if Shimon performed Yibam and then Leah died from that marriage too, Levi would perform Yibam either on Leah or on a co-wife, either one. You know, I'm saying 11 below Mason, he didn't die. But if he died, if Shimon died, if you hold the Yesh Sika, we'll see if you hold the Yesh Sika, then it was like Shimon was married to her, and then there could be even or at least Chalitza in that case. Rashi says, she could marry the third grade. You marry the third grade, according to Rav Shimon. So if Shimon married Leah before Levi was born, so Kiashka Beterashka, and he found her when he was born. It wasn't Eshach Shalamo. Leah was the wife of Shimon, who was in his world. But if he was born before and then it was my time, why does Reb Shimon say that even in that case, if Shimon performed Yibam after Levi was born, still Levi can eventually marry Leah after Shimon dies? Well, no, my time. Why would he say you could even perform Yibam there? Why isn't it? The answer is he holds of Yesika, and here he explains. The Gemara says it before Rashi said it. Zika is like he was married to her. You understand the Yesika? So what does that mean? Because Reb Shimon holds that when Reuben dies, if Shimon married her or not married her, it doesn't make any difference when Levi was born. Even if Levi, understand, because even if Levi was born later on, makes sense because it was like Shimon was married to her right away. And therefore, if he was married to her right away, it's not Eshach Shalom, because when Levi was born, it's like Shimon was married to her. Maskov Yosef, Hashta Zika Umaimer. How can you say that Yesika, Rav Shimon holds of Yesika? Who else holds of Yesika? We said before, Shmuel holds of Yesika, Rav Yehuda, and Shmuel is Yesika. But how can you say Rav Shimon holds of Zika? Hashta Maskov Yosef, Hashta Zika Umaimer Masak Rav Shimon. We're going to have a case now where there was a Zika and even did Maimer, and Rav Shimon's not sure if that's considered like they're married. Boy, how can you say that Zika alone makes it like he's married? This is a kash on Rav Oshia, because see, according to the Pashup shot in Rav Shimon only, we had that before in the first parak. Rav Shimon only says that Levi can marry Leah in a case of where Levi was born after Reuben died, only in a case where when Levi was born, Shimon was already married to Leah. But if Levi, right, that's what we understand of Shimon. But if Levi was born before Shimon performed Yibum on Leah, then he would be motive that say Shech of Shavalamo, and Levi can never marry Leah, even if Shimon subsequently died. Right? That's how we learn. But Rav Oshia says no. In both cases, he says that. Why? Because he says it's Yesika. So the Gemara says, how can you say Yesika? Even Rav Shimon, even when there's Zika and Maimer, he's not sure. Boy, how can you say that Zika alone makes it like they're married? What's that case? Rav Shimon says at the time. Listen to this case. 3 brothers, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, are married to 3 unrelated women. They're not related at all. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Umay Sechamam. Reuben died. And Shimon did Maimer on number 1. Shimon's are married to number 2. The number 1, number 2, number 3 are not related. They're just sisters-in-law now, right? But they're not really related. And now, after Reuven dies, Shimon performed Maimer on Reuven's wife. So he's married to 1, and Shtickle married to number 2. So now he died. They do chalitza. Why? They're not their sisters, but rather because we have a drush if one of your brothers died, Yavamo. What does that mean? Misha la zikas yavam. If there's only one yavam, if he has a bond of one husband, then you do yivam. But now if there's 2, because over here, when he's false, who's the third brother Levi, right? What is he going to do now? He's married. He doesn't even have to have a wife. It's not important if he's married or not. But he has 2 women now falling to him. Why? Shimon dies. He has Shimon's wife, number 2, and he also has number 1 from Reuben, because Reuben, when Shimon didn't really marry number 1, he did Maimer on her. So it's like partially. So there's still a Zika from Reuben, and still a Zika from Shimon, right? So because Shimon's partially married to her. This woman, number 1, sure, Shimon's real wife, number 2, is not a problem, right? Shimon died with no children, so Levi can marry number 2. but number one has a bond from both number one and number two, because she had mimer from number two and a marriage from number one. So this woman has a bond from two husbands. That's no good. That's the drush. It's not a doraisa. It's based on like an asmachta, but she has a zika. This first wife, number one, has a zika to Levi from both number one and number two, because she was married to number one, he died, and she was partially married to number two. So there was zika both. So that's what drush says over there. So what you do is you do chalitza and not yibam. So they ask, what about number two? But you say, what about why can't he really, Levi can really marry Shimon's real wife, number two? Why don't you say that? Okay, that's a drabana. We'll talk about that. But the point is, that's the Tanakama. Rab Shimon Omer, Niab Lezim Shir said, no, in this case, you can marry either one. You can marry either number one or number two. And give chalitza to the other one. Yevumah Tavayolo, you shouldn't marry both of them, the Domi Yesi, because maybe there's Zika. And if there's Zika, what does it mean? If there's Zika, then number one and number two are both married to Shimon. You can't marry both of them. You can't perform Yibam on two wives, right? If number one is considered like she's married to Shimon, so then Shimon has two wives, number one and number two. So you can't make Yibam on both. So right, so make Yibam on one and let the other one be potter, because they're both married to Shimon. Lo, the Dilma Ain Zika, maybe there's Ain Zika. And maybe Leah, the first wife, number one, is not really married to Shimon. So therefore, when Levi has two wives, two women in front of him, one fell from Reuben, one fell from Shimon. You can't just move Yibam on one and potter the other one. You got to do something for both, right? You have to Lo Dilma Ain Zika, Knusam Vavelei Shnei Yevamos, both Shnei Badmas coming from two different houses, one from Reuben and Shimon. So what do you see here? So Shimon says you make Yibma, but we say you do chalitza on both because we're not sure Yesika. But that's the Tanakama, because number one has a zika from number one from Reuben and from Shimon. But Shimon says no, you make Yibma on one. For sure, you can make Yibma on one. You can make Yibma on Shimon, or you can make Yibma on Shimon's wife number two or number one, because Reuben and Shimon are both dead. There's no sisters over here, right? It's not a shachsholamo, so you can marry either one. You can marry either one. But the other one you give chalitza to. Don't marry the other one. Why? You can't marry both. Why can't you marry both? Because maybe yesh zika. What? Not only because of the mimer. Because of yesh zika, because of zika, because maybe yesh zika, and Reuben's wife, number one, is considered married to Shimon, even without the mimer, even the zika and this mimer. But he says maybe because there's Zika. Shimon really talks about mimer. We'll see. But he says because maybe there's Zika. He says marry one. You can't marry both. Why? Because maybe number one is considered married to Shimon, and therefore Shimon died. He has two wives, one and two. You can't marry both. So he says you can't marry both because maybe a Zika. So okay. So why don't you say just marry one and let the other one go? Because it's if the guy has two wives, you only marry one, not the other one, right? The other one goes out scot-free. You don't do Yibam on one and chalitz in the other one. You do Yibam, the other one's potter. You don't say that. Why? Because maybe Ain Zika. Maybe he's not considered married to him, and the mimer isn't good enough. Even with the Zika and the mimer, it's not good enough. And it's Shtei Yevamos comes from two different brothers. If two, let's say Reuben, Shimon, and Levi each had a wife, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 are not related. They're just sisters-in-law. And Reuben and Shimon die in a car accident. And Levi is there left. He has to do Yibam or chalitza on each one of them, one and two, because they're two different husbands, right? Two different brothers. But over here, we're not sure. Is you consider if you hold Ein Zika, then they're from two different husbands. But if you hold Yesh Zika, then they both fell from Shimon because Shimon had performed mimer on her. So over here, we're saying Manach what? Manach when there's Zika and mimer. Rav Shimon's not sure what to do, so certainly Zika alone is not going to be strong. That's the kasha. How could you say over here? Why do you say that in the case of Eishach of Shalobo Olamo, right? That why don't you say? How does he say over here that there's a case of Eishach of Shalomo? Even in this case, no v'achach yav my time. So he goes Zika. If Levi was born after Shimon, before Shimon performed Yibam, how can you say? We say no v'achach Yibam that even there Rav Oshia said in Rav Shimon that you can perform Levi can perform Yibam. No v'achach Yibam he wasn't married to her yet. So it's Eishav Shalom. There's no Yesh Zika. But what do you mean? And Zika is Keknus. But Rav Shimon's not even sure if there's Zika, if there's Yesh Zika, even in a case where he did Maimer. So certainly when there's Zika alone, he's not sure. That's where we are here. We're not sure what Rav Shimon is saying. So we have a Kasha on Rav Oshia. How could you say that if it's no Ledachach, we hold no Ledachach, even Rav Shimon's motive, that it's Eishav Shalamo. But Rav Oshia says even no Ledachach, it's not Eishav Shalamo. Why not? Because of Yesh Zika, but Rav Shimon doesn't even hold of Yesh Zika. He's not sure about it, even in a case where he did Maimer. So certainly when he didn't do Maimer, he wouldn't be sure about it. And that's where we are here right now on Daf Yud Test. Tomorrow's Daf is on the podcast, and it's picked up. We're in the middle of this discussion. Actually, we started on the podcast even from Amid Beis. And on Sunday, we'll start with the Mishnah on Daf Chaf. On Sunday, we'll start the Mishnah on Daf Chaf. Shabbat Shalom.